thank you, Madam U.S. Attorney. And thank you for the meeting in my office. As I told you at the time, I was pretty disappointed and frustrated because you didn't respond directly to any of my big topics, and you said you'd look into these matters and consider them. And as I promised, I restated the big questions in writing, and I was further disappointed when yesterday I got a letter saying there would be no response to that. But maybe the third time is a charm for me asking them, so we'll try here. As I told you in my office, like many citizens and members of the Senate, I have a huge concern regarding what I think is the President's illegal, unconstitutional executive amnesty. And I have a huge concern of the fact that you think it is within the law, and we were talking about that. So I'm going to put up what is the central statutory argument that the President's lawyers point to in terms of his allegedly having authority for this executive amnesty. And it talks about granting parole only on a case-by-case basis. So I guess one of my key questions, which we talked about in my office, is do you really think his granting this amnesty, this new status to about 5 million illegal aliens, is acting on a case-by-case basis as mandated by the statute?
Senator, I greatly appreciate the question, as well as the opportunity that we had to discuss the matters in your office. With respect, again, to my review of the opinion supporting the Department of Homeland Security's request for a legal basis for taking certain actions and prioritizing removal, as indicated, I did find it to be reasonable that we would prioritize removal of the most dangerous undocumented immigrants with our limited resources, particularly those who were involved in violent crime, terrorism, recent crossers, those with criminal records. That seemed to me to be acting in the interest of public safety and appropriate. With respect to other individuals who may not be as high on that priority list, my understanding is that that is a status that they will have for a brief period of time. And certainly as you look at the issue of executive discretion or prosecutorial discretion, you always want to have the ability to still look at individuals and make a determination as to whether or not they should be in that lower priority. And
Ms.
I didn't
Lynch,
see anything
as
in
we
the
talked about in my office, though, his action goes well beyond setting prosecutorial priorities, doesn't it? Apart from that, he goes further in granting this broad category of folks a certain status for 3 years at a time, and then he takes another affirmative step in giving them a work permit. So those two steps are going beyond setting priorities for prosecution, are they not?
Well, certainly, Senator, as relates to how the Department of Homeland Security manages the removal process for those in the low priority category, however they may be determined to be. Again, I'm not aware if those regulations have been set forth yet, so I can't comment on how they'll be implemented.
Does his plan go beyond setting priorities for prosecution or not? Doesn't it, in fact, go beyond that by granting these folks a parole status and giving them a work permit? Isn't that something additional to simply setting internal priorities for prosecution of these cases?
Well, Senator, just one minor point at the outset. I believe that the Department of Homeland Security's action refers to removal and not necessarily prosecution. Certainly with respect to prosecution, there is still robust prosecution under the immigration laws, and in my own district, they are a tool that I use quite frequently. With respect also to what would happen to those individuals who would be in a lower priority status, for lack of a better word, again, I'm not sure how the department will go about implementing that. My understanding is that the issue was there a legal framework for establishing such a program? And the opinion indicated that there was. Do
you agree with that opinion?
I believe individuals still have to apply, at which point there would have to be a review of their eligibility and the like.
fundamentally, do you agree with the legal opinion we're talking about?
I thought that the opinion was reasonable. I also thought that it made distinctions.
Again,
in
going
terms
back to
of-
that legal opinion, this, put that back up, this is a key element of it. So do you think that action that's applying to about 5 million illegal aliens is operating on a case-by-case basis?
Senator, again, I'm not familiar with how the Department of Homeland Security will be actually implementing the orders that it will be reviewing and the applications that it will be reviewing. So I'm not able to provide you with the specifics.
But you've
on-
read the orders. Do you think that lays out a system that is operated on a case-by-case basis?
With respect to my review of the Legal Office of Legal Counsel opinion, it did provide a reasonable basis both for the removal and for the prioritization of certain people as it came to removal. When it
What?
came to the issue of whether or not there could be a program for deferral, it seemed to refer to legal precedent, to the statute itself, and to actions by this body, among others. So it certainly seemed to provide a legal framework for that. And I believe also what I thought was noteworthy was that with respect to the opinion, some of the requested actions by the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Legal Counsel found did not have the appropriate legal framework that would have made them something that could be carried out under the current legal system. And so the advice was not to go forward with
Okay,
certain
well, I'll
of
take it as a yes, that this is operating on a case-by-case basis, and I just think that's really a clear, obvious stretch to say that this action that's going to affect 5 million people is following the law on a case-by-case basis. The law also says, in fact, this same specific citation, it says this decision on a case-by-case basis has to be made by the Attorney General. Now, is it your understanding under the President's plan that if you're the Attorney General, you're going to be in the middle of that process making those decisions?
Well, Senator, I'm not aware of the regulatory framework and the rules that have come out around this statute as to how that authority is either delegated or exercised. So I'm not able to give you an exact answer right now as to how that would specifically
I've read the
be
plan, and the
implemented by
plan
me.
as I read it is for all of that to be done in the Department of Homeland Security. So my question would be, what is the statutory basis to allow that when under the statute, not some order, not some legal opinion, the statute, the law, word by word, it says the Attorney General is in the middle of that decision on a case-by-case basis?
So again, Senator, as presented to me by you today, and thank you for that information, again, I'm not familiar with the ways in which that particular authority has been exercised by the Attorney General, whether it has been delegated or how it is shared with the Department of Homeland Security. So I'm not able to provide you with the specifics at this point as to how I would exercise that authority.
Well, again, I'll have to be following up for the fourth time, but that'll be a central question. The plan is not for the Attorney General to be in the middle of this at all. The statute says that the Attorney General is. Why aren't we following the statute?